Hey guys, what's going on? Paul here. Welcome back to another Cardano video. Today I'm sitting down with someone I've known in the space for a while. We started talking, I think, during the last bear market. We're in the same group. Fahad, you went on to create a fairly big NFT project on Cardano. So Equine, that's what we're going to get into today. You're very welcome on the channel.
Thank you so much for hosting me. It's really nostalgic. It's great that we have our first chance to talk on video, I would say. But it's been great to be with you on this journey. And yeah, like you said, it's been a while, but I'm thankful to the Cardano with Paul channel for, I would say, getting me much deeper into the Cardano ecosystem very early on when things were not really very built yet by third parties. And I'm proud to now be on the channel as a builder on Cardano.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. We talked a lot on Telegram, but this was actually our first time to get on camera, and I was looking forward to catching up with yourself. So can you give the introduction to yourself, and then we'll get into the project, what it is, where it is now, and where it's going as well?
Sure thing. My name is Fahad. I'm from Qatar in the Middle East. I got into Cardano quite a while ago, before NFTs were actually a thing on Cardano. And then with the Mayor hard fork, if I'm not mistaken, when native tokens were supported, I started diving in. I got pretty big into converting most of my ADA holdings into an NFT holding situation, where I really believe and have conviction in the technology of NFTs as a digital product or asset, and with that I just got into that as a collector, and I went pretty heavy in there. But in that time, I also learned a lot of the ropes of how the technical part, but also the marketing, the product design part, and all that for projects in general, and also what they represent, as in what product does each NFT represent, whether it's a collectible, whether it's a utility token, whether it's a game asset in some cases, and so on. So there's been a lot of that. I'm thankful to be supported by a massive community just through the NFT community itself. But then around July, between late June and early July of 2021, we started the concept of building a video game that uses NFTs. And it's not a completely new concept in general, but it's the way we implement it, I think, is pretty unique. And that's where Equine was born. And that's the project I come here now to present in this channel. It is a project that was created by Cardano enthusiasts and lovers and users. The four of us co-founders are actually from the ecosystem. And we built it up, first of all, as a product design. We had a very, very successful mint on the 18th of December, 2021. And we're proud to have minted 14,125 bundles of Equine Pioneer Connection. And then from since we started back in July until now, we have been building that platform. Obviously, we have a lot going on. It's a racehorse management simulation game that has NFTs as a main asset, as a form of true ownership of those assets. And we've been building the whole thing to be using the blockchain for whenever it makes sense. As a game that is being built on a blockchain, there's a lot of R&D components. There's a lot of discovery given Cardano's ways of working, which we're still big fans of, despite some of the challenges in development in general. And we've been striving to make sure that we don't really build this as a Web2 game, but rather be aware of what blockchain can give to this. And there's a lot actually of technical intricacies that are features of Equine, but also kind of use Cardano how it's meant to be used and utilize most of the efficiency and optimization that is possible through that. So let's say a high level kind of overview. I can get into details as we flow through the conversation.
Yeah, so I suppose you really went down the rabbit hole of NFTs, and you encouraged me to look deeper into it. I think at one point anyway, if you're still you were the biggest NFT holder on Cardano, so you had a lot of connections in the NFT community and built up a good name there, a trusted name, and that's you went on then to build this. And what I like is there is utility behind the NFTs. So the actual game, it's going to be a racing game, isn't it?
It's a racehorse management game is how we like to call it. And just to avoid the expectation of like controlling horses like, during the race. It's more like managing your stable, managing your horses and how they perform. There's a few other add-ons, like the jockeys are a part of the gameplay design, skins are a cosmetic, but in essence, I would say the horses are the main thing. And just for the record, like while our project does use NFTs, and while we do have NFTs in some of our branding or name, I would like to say that we rather identify as a game that uses NFTs rather than being an NFT project that has a game utility. So just a key identifier, as the main product we're building is the game, not the NFTs. The NFTs, though, are an integral part of it. So we identify primarily actually as a game that uses NFTs, and we're building it in that way. I think it's a key differentiator. There's a lot of game concepts that came really as add-ons to an NFT collection that was sold, and then there was a then what kind of situation. But in our case, it really was built from the ground up with the game as the core design, and then the NFTs being designed to really fit into that in a way which works for game asset ownership.
Yeah, I think that's good, concentrating on the game first and not trying to build the game around blockchain, around NFTs. The way I think we can onboard a lot more people into crypto is build a quality game that they want to play, and then the NFTs are a part of it. So the NFTs then in the game are the horses. I actually minted one back, I'd forgotten the date until you said it there, the 18th of December. So it's been a while now. I minted that NFT, haven't done much with it since then, but what's happened with the project since the initial mint?
All right, that's great. So we tackled obviously it's a big ambitious one, and when we start, like conceptually, it doesn't really seem very complicated. It's a bunch of horses that you need to like simulate a race of and show them in 3D and do that using the blockchain. So conceptually, it isn't the most, let's say, complicated or complex of games. It's also not the first game in its genre. I mean, there's Zrun that has been on Polygon for a while on Matic, and it has achieved actually, I think, big success back in its peak. I don't know how successful it is today, but it is a very big, let's say, the earliest in the digital or virtual horse racing blockchain game genre. There's a few others that are developing also now, so it's not a completely new genre. But the way we approach it, I think the way each one of us in that development side is approaching it is what defines, I think, the differences. And it seems like a simple undertaking at first. And they say making games is simple, and I would say yes, it is, but it also depends on the scope. As in making an indie game that has a system that's already made, and you can simply put skins on and change colors and stuff is pretty, let's say, trivial. Even then, it's probably still a serious undertaking, but it can be done by one or two persons, right? And we've seen this already in many indie games that have achieved big success. But then building something like this actually, and at the scope that we're looking at, where it's scalable, sustainable, and with proper, thorough technology, I think is pretty heavy. So we split the task up into different, first of all, focuses, and then we also split the project delivery into multiple milestones, right? So we have the primary, let's say, focus of the design is one, there's a web development side, which is the website and what it has in terms of menus, and part of it is the public website with the news and updates and the content management systems and all of that. The other thing is the menus and the interfaces that the players will use. That was handled by one firm that we actually contracted for, and that has actually been completed. As in, we already have like the V1 framework for all of the web app side of things. And that includes racing, which is not released yet, right? I'll get to that in a bit. And then part two is the blockchain development. And for the web development, we're working with a firm called FireArt that's based in Poland, and they've already completed their part of the development. For the blockchain side, we're working with M Labs, who are, I think, well known in the Cardano development space, and they're pretty active in Haskell development and smart contract development in general. I think they've been a very crucial part of our development, and they've been massively, let's say, supportive in what we've done, and they've been also actively working on a lot of this. We have a bit of a novel functionality with a new Cardano improvement proposal that we have under review right now that is meant to also support and is also built to be open source as a system. We can get to that as well. And then, so that's the blockchain development side. There's a 3D development, and we're using Babylon.js for that, which is a WebGL type of WebGL engine. 3D engine. Babylon JS is heavily supported by Microsoft. It's still relatively young, but it's already is the gold standard, I would say, for interactive web browser 3D viewers, right? And that's what essentially Equine is. It's not a game where you control the character and run around and move. So we don't really need something as heavy as Unreal Engine or Unity, because those do have features, but they also come with a lot of weight. We want Equine to have maximum accessibility. We want it to be a browser game. So then using the engine that is best, let's say, primed for interactive 3D viewers is probably the best option. And just for comparison's sake, like Zedron that have been early here, we're actually using 3JS, which is, I would say, a more simple variant of a WebGL engine. So I think Babylon JS was a good selection there. Obviously, it impacts how high we can go on the graphics fidelity. Like we can't go super modern, high, let's say, resolution 3D just because we chose that accessibility as a priority. But obviously, it doesn't really take away from potential development towards that when we get new technologies such as WebGPU coming up. That's gonna, I think, when that's standardized, we're gonna have much more unlocked in terms of capacity, technical capacity of that. So 3D viewer is being developed by a one-man, let's say, team that's really specialized in this. That's Andy. And then we have that's the third part. The fourth part is handled in-house by our CTO, Fensmaker, who's also a minting provider on Cardano. He's a first Plutus Pioneer program, first cohort graduate, and who's been in the Cardano ecosystem also, I would say, as early as we have been, if not earlier. Who's also a physicist, and also, let's say, as scientific data or scientific simulation expert before he even got into blockchain development. So he's our co-founder, and he's also handling the racing engine and breeding engine design. So that's the game simulation side of things. Now, with those four teams together, I think we've split our development into milestones. Racing is the final, or let's say, most important one. Before we reach there, we needed to put a lot of building blocks. Thanks, Paul, for showing this. So
yeah,
you guys
easier
get to
for
see
some people to visualize what's going on, I think.
Exactly. You know, it's a good live demo, I think, of the DApp. And what we have here is we did, first of all, our stables release, which is what Paul is looking at right now. This is live in open beta form. And
yeah,
this
just
is
actually for anyone watching this, this is, I said I minted one horse or one NFT when the sale happened. So I've connected up the wallet that holds that NFT. And you can see here that under stable details, I have one horse, one jockey, one skin, and it says one foal. Actually, I didn't realize that I got a foal with.
No, that's a bug. But yeah, that's not.
Oh, that's
meant to
okay.
show. Yeah, it's counting your horse as a foal, but that's technically not accurate.
Oh, okay. So yeah, when people minted the original NFT, it wasn't just a horse that you minted. You got your horse, jockey, and your skin. And when you come in here, then I can have a look at them. So this is the one that I got. I'm hoping this is going to be a winner in a few races. I have no idea on the stats yet. I haven't been diving into what the horses all look like. But do you want to cover anything on the stats or what?
Sure.
What the horse makeup is?
Sure. So yeah, we minted a bundle of 3 back then. Obviously, each one is a separate NFT, so they're not linked together. So you're free to trade. You're free to, for example, sell your jockey or sell your skin, use that and sell your horse and get a better horse if you wish from the market. It's like we did not combine them, even though it was sold as a bundle, but we're using NFTs to separate that ownership. So everyone can really do what they want with what they got in the bundle. And I see you got a nice horse there. We have our horses. There's a lot of detail. I think depth of the product is I'd say a deeper game is more enticing and longer in terms of lifetime, but it also can intimidate people who are jumping in when they don't know how much of what's going on and they're scared of jumping in. But to keep it simple, like we have an article that outlines this. It's also in our white paper, but horses have a set of physical stats, which are numbers that you can see. And then they have mental stats, which are invisible to the owner. And these mental stats are what define basically how the horse behaves in a race, as in how keen it is to run, how keen it is to go when it's in the lead, how keen it is to preserve its energy when it's in the lead, how keen it is to actually keep trying, even if it's not in the lead, how it behaves in a pack or when there's other horses. So that's the mental stat, and that's not visible as a number, right? And nobody would be able to see that even later on. You would need to infer that from the horse's performance. And it's part of the game, is to figure out how your horse works, right? And then the physical stats here, each one of them contributes to the horse performance. Our racing engine will take all of these into consideration. So whenever a race is entered, all of these factors will contribute to how a horse performs in that race. One more detail that's really worth mentioning: these horses are now 2 years old in horse age. They haven't started aging yet, but they will. And horses basically will live 18 years of horse lives in the platform. There's no variable, let's say, lifespan, but they all have lifespans. So after the 18 horse years are over, if the horse has been activated and starts aging, then they would perish, basically. And what that means is that they will no longer have the utility of being able to race or breed, but what they will remain as an NFT, commemorative NFT. So there will be either a statue or a ghost, depending on how achieved, let's say, this horse was. And yeah, this is a 2-year-old, and it's gonna remain that way until you activate it, actually. So we know that people minted these. They might be worried about them aging without them knowing. So we actually promised everyone that they will be able to basically activate their horse whenever they want to, when the platform is up. They can't do it yet because racing is not live. So that will only start when racing is live. And then the aging will happen at the rate of 1 horse year per month. So it will all be on the first of every month, all the horses will age together. So there's no, let's say, period within the month where you have to manage it. It's all at the same time. One other major, let's say, game design component is breeding. So breeding will be a one-way switch. If you switch your horse to breeding, you will no longer be able to race it. One of our co-founders is actually a professional horse breeder who's been doing this for more than 20 years. And we consult him with every single detail of our game design. And that's actually the way it works. As in, if a horse is ever retired to breeding, it will never be able to go back to racing. But that creates a nice, interesting game design, let's say, choice or strategy that also players need to do, as in, when do they keep racing? When do they stop and switch to breeding? Do they want to test their horse? Do they want to keep racing it? And creates a bit of an interesting, let's say, free dynamic there. I can go over the horse and the features we have here, but it's just, yeah, there's a lot to talk about, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have 2 girls. Most people watching will know, and they're just horse mad. Everything they want to do is to do with horses. They want a horse, but we haven't got any land, so we haven't got horses yet. But they do horse riding at a local center, and so I'm learning a lot about horses the last year or two just from them. And when the game is up and running, I'll definitely have to show them what it's all about. But on the breeding then, so you said there, it's a one-way switch. So they go from the racehorse to breeding. Would people go to breeding straight away, or would they have to build up a reputation for winning races with the horse?
It's up to the player. I would say I would imagine that a good breeder would want to at least identify the mental stats of their horses before they commit to breeding them. Because if they're not even if they have good physical stats, right? If their mental stats are horrible, for example, if you don't race them, you'll never know, right? So that's the thing. But it really is up to the breeder to identify what really works out. They can also play with people's fates by breeding like an unknown thing and then look at the offspring. But you kind of like have a part of the picture, and that really is a major part of the game. If you click on the horse, I guess we can show a little bit of that. So one of the things is you can see your horses in this table. If you had more than one, you'd be able to also switch like with the arrows and go through them. But since it's only one, that's what you get to see. You get the horse stats showing here, and I see it's a filly, and I believe that color is not so common. So for those who care about color, that might be a cool thing to look at. You can see the race stats are empty because we don't have any races yet, right? So people are going to have daily races. There's a quota. The class is not correct. They're going to start as maidens. All of them are going to start as maidens. But this is what we have here on the beta. You can click on the details. Maybe I think a live demo is really worth a lot. Let's look at the details first, I guess. So you can see here the career performance. The training is empty now, but it is a part. So in training, you'll be able to set up a plan for training. So you can set which of these stats do you prefer the horse to focus on. And then every month, if you hit your quota of races, you're going to get that training in. And then if that training, like at the end of the month, you're going to see a separate boost to training. That training obviously doesn't carry over to breeding. It will only be, breeding will only carry the DNA, but the training is meant to differentiate between an active horse and an idle one, right? If you're trained, then you get some advantage that's temporary.
And will the NFT be upgradable then will that improve the stats of the horse? Can the NFT be upgraded, or is the NFT just a one-time?
No, it's gonna be a live, dynamic, updatable NFT, and that's what our SIP is about, actually. So the Cardano Improvement Proposal 86, you can look it up in the Cardano Improvement Proposal side on GitHub, right? It's already under review. It's received one accepted, let's say, review, and then we're just missing actually the one, and I think it's just a matter of time. We've received a lot of comments and scrutiny and discussions that have, I think, reached a stage where it's in acceptable form. And we're building with that standard anyway, as in we've already like progressed in building using that standard. If it's adopted like blockchain protocol wide, that's magnificent. If it isn't, we're still using it as the best option, I'd say, for our platform. So it's a really novel way, but the way it does this is, I think you're aware of SIP 25, which is the NFT metadata standard. And then beyond that, like we've built this SIP which allows using transactions to actually update the state of NFTs in a very effective and efficient way. So every time you send in a horse to a race, that daily race count is actually on the blockchain, because after the race is done, all of the horses that participate are going to get updated. But we've also done it in a way where it doesn't really bloat the blockchain. So you're not going to get a single, like the classic way to update SIP 25 NFTs now is to actually mint a duplicate of it and then burn it. And that will update the stats. But our friends at MLabs, like very, very early on, said, like, how do you feel about creating a fungible duplicate of everyone's horses every time? It's just very cumbersome and inefficient. We can come up with a better design. And that's where the SIP came. And what the SIP does is it allows very efficient, like we can update all of the horses in our protocol, some of types of updates, at least the common ones, in just a single transaction. So you can think of one transaction to update the state of all the horses in the platform on the blockchain, on the NFTs, and represent that, right? And that solution is actually being made open source. So any other project that can benefit from having updatable NFTs using a very effective way. It's not a smart contract-based solution. So we understand that our races will be smart contract, but the update of NFTs is not managed through a smart contract. That is the SIP 68, which I think has also been pretty popular recently. And that works and is, I would say, from a design point of view, more optimal from security standpoint of, you know that your NFT can only change in this way, right? But our solution or our SIP is based on a middle ground solution. Not everyone can afford to have a smart contract developer or somebody who understands how to identify or implement and adjust those. So we came up with this middle solution, which uses the blockchain, still is secure in that sense, secures who are able to update, but also simplifies the development needs for that. So they will be live updated. So if you switch to breeding, how many races it has, how many covers it has, we have a system where stud owners or stallion owners will be able to offer their stallion for breeding. So that will also be a utility where people can use that. We did it in a decentralized way. So you won't need to, like the breeding will happen on our platform, obviously, because it's our activity, but then offering the stallion availability, we were going to do that in a marketplace. Then we realized that one, it's a very big undertaking to create our own when there's already so many marketplaces. Then we recognized, well, why not just issue this as a voucher? So then stallion owners can actually create a breeding voucher for their stallion and sell it in any market they want, whether it's JPEG store, elsewhere they want to like lend it, do an auction for their stallion breeding service. It's much more flexible by allowing people, and then it's also utilizing the blockchain, right? It's meant to be as decentralized as we can, and whenever we can, we'd like to do that. So this is I realize we're almost running out of time, but this just shows you a bit of that preview. And then if you go to the configurator, which is like the last tab here, you can actually click on configure and see your skin and horse skin. So you can see that it might take a few seconds to take you to this configurator section. Here you can see you have the default jockey equipped. So you can also switch your jockey by going to this would change just the skin. And then you can also like click on Jockey, and then you can also see the actual jockey you have. So you can equip that. You'll see that it changes the determination on top. So it will change like the stats that it changes. And if you remove the skin, you're gonna see like just the jockey, right? So if you remove this,
okay.
you can see just that.
So if I had multiple jockeys, I can assign them on to different horses then. And just a few questions back on what you were saying there. So one was the breeding. You don't have to have the stallion yourself. You can use the vouchers. But if you have your own stallion, can I breed at any time, or how does that work?
There's a limit. So obviously, mares will only have one breeding per month, because you can only foal once per month with a mare. Stallions will have a cover of 5 stud vouchers, or 5 covers per month. That cap can be increased temporarily using the first Pioneer Pass. Maybe it's a good segue into looking at what we have. So this is the state we have now. Let's just maybe go really quickly into social, just to we take just a 1 minute, maybe just overview on that. That's another release that we did. So I haven't added any friends on the platform, which is fine. You can add people here and message them over here. You can look at the My Guild, which will also be empty, but then you can look at all guilds. You can see that there's people who've already like created guilds. This is obviously a work in progress. We want people to have like their own guild images. It's a place for like, you can join now Legendary, and then you can see like the past chat that people have had there and interact. And we think it's a nice way for people to be able to. We have a Discord, obviously, that's pretty active, but we just wanted to have also an in-platform option for those who don't wish to go that deep, let's say, into the community. So it's one more thing. There's private guilds, obviously, that you can request to enter, and there's public guilds that you can just enter directly. And like, there's no really cost to entering guilds. If it's a private one, obviously you have to be accepted. Now, I guess what we go to next is racing. So racing is not live yet, but we just released a trailer a few days ago, actually on the weekend.
Welcome to Equine, the pinnacle of virtual horse racing, where every race is a heart-pounding spectacle. Experience realistic racing and breeding simulation and immerse yourself in a world where the perfect match between horse and jockey can lead to victory. As the saying goes, good pairs make great races. Manage your horses and jockeys in your very own stables and watch them come to life on the racetracks where legends are born. Join now and let the thrill of the race begin. Feel the adrenaline surge as hooves thunder down the home stretch. Do you have what it takes to become a champion? Get ahead in the game with our exclusive First Pioneer Pass, on sale now. Enjoy perks like entry to exclusive races, breeding fee discounts, and more.
So the trailer will show you the current state of our development. There's a few things that I think it's a good representation of how far we've gone into building the system for the racetracks and the horses. The only thing I think that doesn't represent well is the animation. The animation itself is there, but you also see that they're all synchronized. It's not meant to be in the game. So when the game is up, they will not be synchronized. Each will run at its own speed as it should, right? But I think it's a good visual for what we're getting to. So races is our next release. It's meant to be, I would say, an optimistic but still realistic target is summer. So we're looking for a summer release for racing in open beta form. And then we're going to launch that in open beta, and that's going to roll out with the activation of horses. And we have our first track is Yarra Gardens. That's meant to be in Melbourne, Australia. We have a few other tracks that will be coming up. We already actually have quite a few designs, but they're not done yet in terms of that. Then we have the first Pioneer Pass. That's a sale that's live now, and it will be live until the end of May. This is another NFT. It's a new system game component that we added. So the Game Pass is meant to have some utility. It's a utility NFT. You can see it that way. Like you've seen, like Meld and some of the other platforms come up with these utility NFTs that give you some form, and this is quite similar, I say, in that sense. It is a Game Pass component that is will be continued later on when the game is live, but they will not be the first Pioneer Pass. So we'll have a season pass that's going to be a month duration. We're going to have an annual pass later on that's going to be for a year. But the first Pioneer Pass is actually 16 months of period. And what that is meant to commemorate is the lifespan of the first generation of Pioneer horses that will be activated now. So it offers entry into some exclusive free races. We will still have free races that will be for public, but I imagine those will be a bit more crowded. So we thought we'd also have a second, let's say, level or path for pass holders, breeding fee discounts, stud vouchers. We mentioned 5 covers per month. This will allow you, every Pioneer Pass will give you 10 points, and then you can spend those on whichever perks you prefer. So you can use those points, 6 of those 10 points, to add 1 more stud voucher cover to one of your stallions, right? That's 1 perk we added. And then the sale will be until the end of May for this one. And then we'll only be offering annual passes and season passes later on. And the other thing is sales within April, before April ends, are going to also include 1 more NFT, which is the silks. Silks will be the stable silks or the racing colors that owners usually have. When we did the Pioneer collection, we didn't really have that component really figured out. So the jockeys were not really unique in their colors, and would have been anyway difficult if you have multiple jockeys, each with their own unique color. You can't really unify. But once we've really figured out the best way to do this, we've already implemented the technology so that these silks will be equipable on top of the jockeys. Now, you could say, well, there's skins, and then there's jockeys, and there's people who don't like the skins. We've found that skins are very polar in terms of whether people like them or hate them. There's almost no middle ground. I would say the purists have good right to not like skins. And for that, we've decided that we'll anyway build in a classic mode option. So if you select classic mode, you'll never view the races with skins on. You'll always see the thoroughbred horses with the proper jockeys and with the silks on. If you turn the classic mode off, you're going to see the skins if they're equipped in any of that funky business that's happening. We still want to develop that side of the game and the platform, the skins, but we also want to be careful with all of the, let's say, realistic racing lovers. So the silks will be, I think, a main identifier for stable owners, and they will be on sale later on separately, but we've also bundled that in as an extra promotion for the first Pioneer passes that will be sold during April. So if these, I don't know when this will be published, but if it is before the end of April, I think that will be the chance to get those bundled with the first Pioneer Pass if you wish to enter there.
Okay. Yeah, it should go out in the next day or two. This should be out. So it should be out a few days before the end of April. I have to go and get my little girl from school now in a few minutes, so I'm going to have to run. But just on the races, I've seen there's prize money. Do people have to pay to enter the races, or where does the prize money come from winning races?
There will be an entry fee, and then, based on that entry fee, there will be a prize purse that gets put together. There will be a 10% operator's cut that will always be taken out of those prize pools for operation costs and all that. But the remaining 90% is meant to be redistributed between the winners. And there's a few other, like, usually the standard is like top 1, 2, 3 are those who get the prizes. The free races will be free entry with prizes, but they'll also be limited in availability, right?
And will the payment be in ADA, or will there be an equine token, or what will the
We've held off. The basis is ADA. We've held off on creating our own token. We think it makes sense in some way. And we have the equine utility points that will be like on the passes now. That might lend itself later on to a token being created to replace these perks. But for now, I think we're building everything to be based on ADA. And that's how we think that should be for the time being until there's a token. But even if there's a token, that token is meant to be supplementary, as in could be bonus points that you get for participating or for playing that everyone gets as a consolation, for example, for doing something. And there's a whole concept for that, but we're not really rolling that out yet. We're basing everything in ADA. We think it's the most natural being on this blockchain. And then, if we're close to running out of time, just maybe worth mentioning, if you're interested, please do come join our Discord if you're a Discord person. You'll find loads of support from our community and picking out the right horse. If you also want to dip your toes in, please refer to our website. We also have a very, let's say, a very elaborate white paper. It's also due for an update that's coming also soon to include some of the newer features that we've added over the past year and a half. But it is still a good reference. I would say most of it is not really contradicted. It's still correct and applies to today. There's a few articles on our website that will also now help anybody who's dipping their toes in. But please do check us out if you have a chance, if you aren't already part of the community.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll leave the Discord link down below, and maybe Twitter as well for people who follow along and use Twitter for their latest updates. But anything else? You said there, actually, the racing, you're hoping to get it out in the summer. So maybe before that goes live, right around that time, we'll definitely have to do a catch up, see how things are going, and maybe I can show some of the races if I can get my own horse into the races and show how the process goes.
Absolutely, that would be wonderful, and really appreciate your taking the time to set this discussion up. I think it's really great that we get the chance to also share this with the community.
Yeah, look, Fahad, thanks very much for this. It was great to finally get on camera and talk outside of Telegram. We'll keep in touch with how things are going. Anyone interested, I will put the links for Equine down below if you want to follow yourselves, and subscribe to the channel here if you're new. Share it out to let others know what's going on in the NFT space and in Cardano in general. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you soon.